girl, and DMT, somehow entered my the membrane of my brain, and
Is reality just a microdose of a DMT trip?
it's just a dream. It was Biggie had a good point. It was just a dream. It was just a dream reading Monopoly magazine. Yeah, that one. All right, hey, hey
Are
everybody.
we trapped in a prison of flesh
Of
and
our
bone?
ironically of our own minds, of our own subjectivity. Yes, we can never escape our own subjective biases.
Or
But
is our mind trapped in the body?
where do we go when we sleep?
Who
These are the
Where are we traveling to when we go in Dreamland? That's what we need to find out.
when I go sleep, when my eyes close. maybe
What?
that's hemisync.
Yeah, why is the dream state a dystopian version of reality? You know?
Is that how yours is? That sucks, dude. Mine's fucking lit.
Well, it's like it's not reality though, is it?
Aren't you experiencing it?
Are dreams the real reality?
Wake up, people.
Yeah,
Wake up, sheeple.
You guys are still in the dream state. You've got to wake up at this point.
You're telling me? Oh my God, Ryan, this is so embarrassing for these people. You're telling me you guys haven't achieved hemisync yet? Oh my God, imagine, dude.
Yeah. I mean, where are the missing pages on the hemisync document released by the CIA?
We're never gonna get them, Ryan.
Goodness.
They're actually, you know what? You know what? I found them. Everybody, I found them. They're on page 152 of Thus Spoke Zarathustra by Friedrich Nietzsche. And so that's what we're gonna talk about, everybody. Yay! Surprise! We're back in action. It's your boy Ryan and Ben, and we're here to read you another section and talk about it. So so let's fucking do this. Are you ready, Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, do you want me to start us off?
No, I can start. Don't you worry, little boy. You just make sure that squat plug is nice and tight in there, and you're gonna start on 150 on 154.
All right.
Of great events, there is an island in the sea, not far from the blissful island of Zarathustra, upon which a volcano continually smokes. The people, and especially the old women among the people, say that it is placed like a block of stone before the gate of the underworld, but that the narrow downward path which leads to this gate of the underworld passes through the volcano itself. Now, at the time Zarathustra was living on the Blissful Islands, it happened that a ship dropped anchor at the island upon which the smoking mountain stood, and its crew landed in order to shoot rabbits. Towards the hour of noon, however, when the captain and his men were reassembled, they suddenly saw a man coming towards them through the air, and a voice said clearly, "It is time. It is high time." But as the figure was closest to them, it flew quickly past, however, like a shadow in the direction of the volcano. They recognized with the greatest consternation that it was Zarathustra, for all of them had seen him before except the captain himself, and they loved him as the people love, that is, with love and awe in equal parts. "Just look," said the old steersman, "there is Zarathustra going to hell." At the same time as these sailors landed on the volcano island, the rumor went around that Zarathustra had disappeared. And when his friends were questioned, they said that he had gone aboard a ship by night without saying where he intended to sail. Thus, there arose a disquiet. After 3 days, however, there was added to this disquiet the story of the sailors. And then all the people said that the devil had carried Zarathustra off. Of course, his disciples laughed at this talk. And one of them even said, "I would rather believe that Zarathustra had carried off the devil." But at the bottom of their souls, they were all full of apprehension and longing. So great was their joy when, on the 5th day, Zarathustra appeared among them. And this is the tale of Zarathustra's conversation with the fire dog. Dun dun dun. The earth, he said, has a skin, and this skin has diseases. Of these diseases, for example, is called man. And another one of these diseases is called the fire dog. Men have told many lies and been told many lies about him. To fathom this secret, I fared across the sea, and I have seen truth, naked, truly, barefoot to the neck. Now I know all about the fire dog and also about all the revolutionary and subversive devils which not only old women fear. Up with you, fire dog, up from your depth, I cried, and confess how deep that depth is. Where does it come from? What that which you snort up? You drink deeply from the sea, you bitter eloquence betrays that. Truly, for a dog of the depths, you take your food too much from the surface. At the best, I hold you to the earth's ventriloquists, to be the earth's ventriloquist. And when I have heard subversive and revolutionary devils speak, I have always found them like you, bitter, lying, and superficial. You understand how to bellow and how to darken the air with ashes. You are the greatest braggart and have sufficiently learned the art of making mud boil. Where you are, there must always be mud around, and much that is spongy, hollow, and compressed. It wants to be freed. Freedom! You almost like to bellow, but I have unlearned belief in great events whenever there is much bellowing and smoke about them. And believe me, friend Infernal Rocket, the greatest events, they are not our noisiest, but our stillest hours. The world revolves not around the inventors of new noises, but around the inventors of new values. It revolves inaudibly.
And just confess, little was ever found to have happened when your noise and smoke dispersed. What did it matter? That a town had been mummified and a statue lay in the mud. And I say this to the overthrowers of statues. To throw salt into the sea and statues into the mud are perhaps the greatest of follies. The statue lay in the mud of your contempt, but this is precisely its law, that its life and living beauty grow again out of contempt. And now it arises again, with diviner features and sorrowfully seductive, and in truth it will even thank you for overthrowing it, you overthrowers. I tender, however, this advice to kings and churches and to all that is weak with age and virtue. Only let yourself be overthrown, that you may return to life and that virtue may return to you. Thus I spoke before the fire dog. Then he interrupted me sullenly and asked, "The church, what is that then?" "The church," I answered. "The church is a kind of state, and indeed the most mendacious kind. But keep it quiet, you hypocrite dog. You surely know your own kind best. Like you, the state is a hypocrite dog. Like you, it likes to speak with smoke and bellowing, to make believe, like you, that it speaks out of the belly of things. For the state wants to be absolutely the most important beast on earth, and it is believed to be so too." When I said that, the fire dog acted as if he were mad with envy. "What?" he cried. "The most important beast on earth, and is believed to be so too?" And so much steam and hideous shrieking came from its throat, I thought he would choke with vexation and envy. At length he grew quieter, and his panting ceased. As soon as he was quiet, however, I said, laughing, "You are vexed, dog, fire dog. Therefore I am right about you, and that I may press my point. Let me speak of another fire dog. which really speaks from the heart of the earth. His breath exhales gold and golden rain, so his heart will have it. What are ashes and smoke and hot mud to him now? Laughter flutters from him like a motley cloud. He is ill disposed towards your gurgling and spitting and gripping of the bowels. Gold and laughter. However, he takes from the heart of the earth, for that you may know it. The heart of the earth is of gold. When the fire dog heard this, he could no longer bear to listen to me. Abashed, he drew in his tail and said bow wow in a small voice, and crawled down into his cave. Thus narrated Zarathustra, but his disciples hardly listened to him. So great was their desire to tell him about the sailors, the rabbits, and the flying men. What am I to think of it? Said Zarathustra. Am I then a ghost? But it will have been my shadow. Surely you have heard something of the wanderer and his shadow. This, however, is certain. I must keep it under stricter control. However, it will ruin my reputation. And once again, Zarathustra shook his head and wondered, what am I to think of it? He said again, why then did the phantom cry? It is time, it is high time. For what? Then is it high time. Thus spoke Zarathustra.
Such a metaphorical piece here, people.
Dude, that is metaphorical AF, if I'm being quite honest.
That's like fucking 6 dimensions of metaphors. Dude.
Can we even quantify the amount of dimensions that could be?
It's impossible. Listen, no one on Earth has ever been as smart as this guy, and no one will be. It's sad to say that the best has come and gone already so soon.
I mean, how can you even think of scoring a 6,000 on the IQ test, you know?
They don't even work on him. He has a negative score. They're built for sheep, and he's not a sheep.
I heard he grew 30 arms for his exam and did all 30 exams with all 30 arms in the same time period it could take.
That's
one person.
The power of hemisync. You know, he figured it out. We're all lagging behind our little flies of the marketplace.
That's a real question. Did Nietzsche really go mad, or did he just achieve hemisync?
And that's what we're here to find out, people. So, metaphors. It starts off strong. The whole thing is strong. It starts off the analogy of an island at sea with a volcano that old women tell stories about, that gates the guard to hell, where sailors come on ships, and he leaves with them, and then he speaks with this fire dog. So,
do you want to see if we can find out maybe some symbolism about the block of stone or the volcano?
Yeah, if you know symbolism right off the bat, go ahead. I was going to outline the metaphorical landscape that he paints here because...
Okay, you finish off then.
What'd you say?
You finish off then.
Okay, so the biggest player here is the ocean. The ocean is very symbolic in a lot of cultures as the unconscious. So the ocean is the unconscious. The sailors on the ship are like your ego, your conscious self, navigating the unconscious. And the old women on this island with a volcano, maybe the volcano symbolizing like some sort of trouble because it's this existential crisis-inducing thing, you know, because if you live on it, you live near danger. You know, maybe that's like your shadow. But the old women, I think, is important because that's a archetype. That's one of the archetypes that Jung would talk about as the old sage. If you ever think about in a lot of these mythologies and stories, who are these like old sages in the Greeks? I think you have the 3 Furies, maybe. They're the 3 witches or fate and whatever. It's all old women. And so that's another powerful analogy here. You're right, the volcano, that the rock that guards the path to the underworld, And then the fire dog. This I don't. Very curious to hear what you're gonna say about the fire dog because my interpretation. It took me quite a few readings to fully try and understand what he's saying here. But to my best knowledge, what the fire dog represents is the is when people get together in mass and there's some sort of revolutionary movement. It's the herd mentality of that movement. What do you think?
Yeah, we can look at it like that. Let's see. I mean, the first thing I read when I heard Fire Dog and him talking about the gateway to hell is like a hellhound, like a Cerberus or um, something of that nature. But yeah, more likely it's symbolic of. Let's see. Well, fire is usually like a symbol of like outrage, power. Let's see. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is the fire dog is like a symbol of maybe people who all stand together for a movement that is out of rage and maybe facing the truths of what they're really fighting for perhaps makes them cower as a dog would. Like, I think I saw a video of, I think he talks about that later in this section, but there's a video of like 3 dogs barking at each other behind a gate, and then when the gate gets drawn back, none of them are
Yeah.
barking, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can look at it like that. What we, you know, once Zarathustra starts telling him these truths, you know, at first he, you know, kind of approaches aggressively and, you know, seems to be a powerful threat or a predator of sorts. But after Zarathustra starts laying down on him, some WWE SmackDown with truths, he starts to cower and his tail kind of goes between his legs. So, would you relate that to anything today?
Yes. Before we even go to relating this and drawing this to some sort of relevance to our society and culture right now, think about the archetype of the lone wolf, of the wolf that's not part of a pack, that's acting rogue, that has to be more malicious, but also has to be more cowardly because if it's in a position where it's trying to self-preserve. So if it's really at risk to dying, it's going to cower. But it also has to be hyper aggressive because it's going to have to outcompete animals that work together. It's going to have to outcompete a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And so um, let me know if I start to become incoherent. But my point is that I think he was very wise at choosing a dog in this situation to represent the herd mentality, the human nature of the herd mentality, possessed by an ideology. Um, Let me write this down real quick because if you think about the language he's using, um, I have heard subversive and revolutionary devils speak, and that's in reference to the fire dog. He talks about the fire dog tearing down statues, so destroying history, because you can just imagine. I mean, we see it now. Obviously, it's like pretty damn prevalent that this is very relevant to our culture. But a lot of revolutionary movements want to do away with the old to get rid of them. So you see that, and that's more of like their like an animalistic kind of nature mentality is to destroy everything and go crazy and fucking burn everything down like a fire dog.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. And I guess condensed down, we can look at the fire dog as a anarchist. You know, I mean, anarchy is a symbol of chaos, right? So the fire dog wants to overthrow. He keeps referring them to him as the overthrowers. So
Yep.
throwing the current reign. But like, how many revolutions have there been where they've set up a successful government structure, or I guess well, we don't know of any that have survived to today, sort of, unless it's a
1776, bitch.
okay. Yeah, but I mean that I wouldn't really relate that to an anarchy where anarchists have taken over and overthrown. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I guess why does Zarathustra hate the symbology of the fire dog or the anarchists, the ones who want to overthrow society, um, in a sort of chaotic manner? Uh, I wonder if he thinks it's more so that the goal is fruitless, that maybe following yourself is more important than becoming a better person yourself will impact society far more than throwing Molotovs at a building, you know?
What are you talking about, bro? When I burned down that Wendy's, that's really setting society in the right direction.
Yeah, because like I mean, like most anarchists, that's the sort of thing they're doing is like burning establishments down that are a symbol of perhaps capitalism, a dictatorship, um, the government building or something of that nature, where they're. Well, I guess what we can kind of look into is like why is fire a symbol of anarchy? And I guess,
Well, well,
yeah, you go ahead.
um, well, fire is an interesting thing. As a metaphor, I actually looked into fire quite a bit. Um, stemming from my pursuits in the astrological field. Fire, obviously being a Leo, a prominent fire sign. Fire as a metaphor is a very good representation of the personality and the archetypal traits that Leos or Aries or Sagittarius have. And fire is explosive, it's dangerous, it can be warm, it can provide light to illuminate the dark, but it's this I mean, everything has a yin and yang, and so does fire. So it can both be the giver of life, but also the destroyer of life, in the most extreme sense. And so, like you always say, if you're not careful and you play with fire, you'll get burned. All of these kind of sayings about the metaphor of fire. Uh I To go back to your point earlier, I do agree that, like, in essence, the best thing to do always is to look inward and work on yourself and fix yourself first before you try and do anything else. Um, but at the same time, I think this is more of a critique of the rabid nature that tends to happen. Because we all know, I'm sure we all know, maybe we don't, that when human beings get together into a group, we act very, very differently. And it's quite scary how the mob mentality kind of almost is less human than the rational individual.
Mm.
And so I think he's just providing a healthy critique, saying, "Hey, look," because he's bringing up other fire dogs too. He's talking about the one that seems way more pleasant, that speaks from the heart of the earth, golden laughter. Like, that sounds way more pleasant than ashes and smoke in the sky, and all that kind of stuff. So I think and also he says the church is also a fire dog and the state is a fire dog. So you see how, like, it's like this he's putting these things that are like ideological group think mentality together, and saying, like, I don't know. I'm starting to lose my train of thought, but the point is
Hmm.
that I think it's a healthy critique of the mob mentality.
Yeah. So he sort of has like a hatred of the archetype of like the rebel. Because it's like rebels or anarchists doing it for the benefit of society or doing it for themselves. But it seems like in this, it's like the mob, right?
Oh yeah.
People who are being rebellious for the sake of being rebellious or scared of facing themselves. So they throw the blame on others. And let me see. I think I had so the golden laughter part, and he says he takes from the heart of the earth, for that you may know it. The heart of the earth is of gold. So, for this one, it's like golden laughter does sound quite pleasant, but then he's describing how they're still dependent on the earth or taking from something that's not themselves. In a sense, is that kind of?
Unless, so see, I interpreted that way differently. For me, when I hear someone saying taking from the heart of the earth, that to me is a metaphor for nature, the metaphor for our instincts and our human nature. So for me, when I read that this other fire dog he takes from the heart of the earth, to me, I'm interpreting that as, oh, this is a person or group of people that believe in human nature. They understand it instinctually, and the result is golden laughter because of that. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
not?
yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think yeah, I think you're much more right than I was. I didn't really read the before section as well. But yeah, I guess we could look at that like maybe like what's the word for it? Like an environmental terrorist, where they're like doing it from uh they have this rebellious stake against I guess like big corporations like taking too much from the earth, and but like if they're like blowing up a plane or blowing up a oil thing or hurting others in a sense, it's like um, then they're no better than the people who are doing it in a way. So I was just kind of relating it to that fire dog perhaps because that's a state of rebellion that I think a lot more people could understand. Since people today are much more eco-conscious and want to protect the environment, even, I mean, if it's just throwing stuff in the recycling. What do you think about that?
It in terms of like revolting and trying to bring about change, it sounds like what you were bringing up was almost very much so like Malcolm X versus MLK. Like MLK was all about revolution through peace and revolution through love, like
Mm-hmm.
pure love in the truest sense of changing the world without harming people, like a very Zen Buddhist kind of way. And then you have Malcolm X, which is I'm going to
Radical.
yeah, by any means necessary in order to secure my life as, not having to deal with prejudice or not having to deal with whatever. And so I think that the latter, being the Malcolm X route, is what he, alongside I, am more concerned with, because although in some instances it may be necessary, I think we as people don't know how to turn off the valve once we've opened it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, you can think of any movement, whether it's feminism or whatever movement you want, and you can take a look at the track record and you see that there's no stopping. So it's like, okay, if you go down that road, that revolutionary route of like more anarchy, more MLK, or sorry, more Malcolm X style, um, it's a much slippery slope into like really bad situations, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so let me take us on a interconnected road
Go for it.
to another section here. So on the top of 154, he says, "I say this to the overthrowers of statues, to throw
Yes.
salt into the sea and statues into mud are perhaps the greatest of follies." So I mean, when was this written? Early 19 or 18,
No,
late
no.
late 1800s.
Yeah. Yeah, late
Yeah, yeah,
1800s.
yeah. So, I mean, how relevant is this to today? I mean, the
Very.
the BLM movement, you know, vandalizing and destroying statues and demanding for them to be torn down. Don't quote me
Yeah.
on this, but I'm pretty sure they took down Robert E. Lee's statue recently, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's just like you really, it's so simple. It's like throwing salt into the sea. Like, how pointless is that? Like, what is throwing a statue away of a person? Like, have you ever walked into a museum or been somewhere where there's a statue to a figure, and like you don't even know who they are unless you go up to the nameplate? And next off, I'm not walking away from there being like, this guy was so great. I really want to be just like him. You know, I'm never looking at
Yeah.
a statue of Robert E. Lee and being like, dude, I really really want to, you know, fight
This
against.
guy's speaking my
Yeah.
language.
Yeah. Like, no one thinks like that, where they're being directly influenced by a statue of a person. And it's like, why can we not look at a statue? Like, this is a normal person finds out, you know, about, you know, say um like a statue of Stalin. Like, I'm not going over there and be like, he was such a great guy, killing 30 million people. I'm looking as that as basically honoring those 30 million people, in that we don't repeat those mistakes again as a society. Looking at these people as a symbol of what not to do, rather than taking them down and destroying the history. I mean, it's like going into a museum and taking down a huge chunk of history because it doesn't go along with a group's narrative of the way they view society.
Yes,
It's insane. And
and
like he
uh-huh.
said, sorry, the greatest of follies.
Yes, that's I love that. I kind of got a fucking fat smirk on my face the first time I read that, because I was like, this shit's so funny. He's roasting this shit. This is like, it's fucking, people listen. It's fucking funny when I read this book, and he like straight up roasts shitty ideologies or shitty like movements that are currently happening. And I'm like, bro, like, this guy was writing shit in the 1800s, and y'all motherfuckers still haven't figured shit out, huh? But I'm sorry. But yeah, besides that fun point, below this, the quote that you read, which is about the folliness of throwing statues in the mud, is that it actually does the opposite of what they're trying to do. They're trying to erase the history, and now it's getting people to actually pay attention to it, learn from it, and then he says later that the statues actually thank them for returning them to life and for like giving them more power, because that's exactly what you do. You know what I mean? Like, not, I guarantee nobody knew, or not a lot of people really knew Civil War history enough to tell you. I didn't even know Robert E. Lee was a civil Confederate general until I moved over here to Lee County. And so it's like, but if you tear down the statue and the whole world's watching, and now you have the whole world going, wait, who was that guy? And then you read and you learn, and then you learn about that, and then, you know. So it's funny how it does the opposite. You have the opposite effect there.
Yeah, and you know, it's like you know, if you're a government looking at a rebellious crowd who are trying to overthrow the veil of society, right? And you see them destroying statues or vandalizing statues. It's like, that gives those people a triumph, right? That they have actually achieved something. And really, they've done very little except vandalize a statue. And, you know, it's like, I think a lot of these movements, people aren't necessarily against them, but if you are against a certain movement, you're so heavily criticized. And you know, I was watching an old debate video from like 1950s, and it was a group of people who all disagreed, but they would actually listen to the person no matter how much they wanted to interrupt or you know, through that anger. But it's like, today, it's like either people's attention spans are so short, or they've become so infuriated over these things. You say anything against it, and shut down, and there's no civil discussion. And returning back to my point, it's like, where does it end? You know, have a fundamental plan where this ends. Like, what do you want to achieve with the movement that you're in? And it's like, it just seems so lost and chaotic, and you know, what we've seen from how big these movements have become is very little change in society. And as we can even talk about how Jordan Peterson refused to use pronouns, not because a person would feel better about it, because once you start infringing on one's freedom of speech, that's when it's essentially how, like, communism started, or something along these lines, where it's like society becomes very authoritarian, and you cannot say this and do this. And you can look to, like, the Black Mirror episode, where they have, like, a social credit system that they implemented in China. It's like most people have a hard time seeing into the future, but it's like, if you don't stop these things now, it's like weeds. Like, unless you pluck them from the bottom of the stem or tame them, they're gonna overgrow and become too powerful, I suppose.
Yeah, well, they'll ruin the garden.
Yeah. That's a good finisher for it.
Going back to the point about the statues again. So you brought up a very good point. I want to elaborate. I want to go into it a little bit more, which is that, like, in essence, you can't just be in rejection of something. Like, you can't just be in opposition of something without having something of equal or greater value to implement after it's you remove it. So, like, if your whole thing is, oh, we got to get rid of these statues because these people were evil, bad people, and you're going to tear them down, it's like, well, what are you going to replace them with? Like, what have you done that's so great that you're going to try and eliminate, a historical figure from the public's, like, literal physical view? Like, I will no longer see it. And it's like, you better, like, have done something great to put up a statue of yourself or of the people of your movement, like, go save a million, starving children, or a million African children that have to mine cobalt for that iPhone you're tweeting on. And then I'll put up a statue of you, or then we'll put up a statue. But, like, until then, it's like, you haven't done anything. And your opposition to the movement, or your opposition to whatever you're trying to take down, is the only thing that is that's like the criterion of your movement. And thus, without that thing you're critiquing, you are nothing. So it's like, get your shit together, people.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost as if we've just become a opinion and feeling based society rather than a factual one. It's like, we can just ignore all the facts, but if someone feels a certain way, it's fine. It's like the fat shaming movement, like telling people who are morbidly obese, like 5'4", 500 pounds, you're still beautiful and you're healthy. I've seen people say I'm healthy, like,
yes,
at this
that's
rate.
the worst. I don't
and
give
it's
a
like,
fuck.
You can't perpetuate ideas that are false because it hurts someone's feelings, right? It's like we're living in insane land. Like, we need to, like, I guess it's also like science just seems to have gone out the window, or it's like people are able to there's so much information out there, you're able to find some kind of document that will go along with your point. It's like
yes, scientifically and statistically illiterate is the proper that's like
read the literature. Read the literature.
Read the goddamn article, but not even just read them. It's like,
read the opposing views. Find out where those who funded the study. Do they have a bias involved?
That's way too much work. I just want to read the headline of an article that I saw on Twitter and then rage about it. Okay?
No,
you don't understand.
No.
Listen,
Ben, don't fall for the trap. Don't fall for the trap.
Ryan, listen, you understand. A new season of that show came out about the famous couple, the famous people that I have to watch about the housewives and this and that. You understand? I don't have time to learn boring stuff.
You can't get stuck in the trap. You gotta wake up, buddy. You gotta wake up.
I have been waking up. We've been discussing doing a lot of things to boost energy levels and to, take advantage of the instinctual prowess that lies deep within our subconscious and unconscious. We've definitely been on the road, brother, to success in that realm.
Yeah, why don't we finish up with the section, and I can put some timestamps in here, and then we can talk for 10 minutes about some things that we've noticed improving our mood and overall health.
Sure.
Cool. Is there you want to find another part for us to talk about here?
Well, the ending, I'm to be frank, I'm very confused at the fucking ending.
Let's try and figure it out densely. Dense.
That's right. We're dense thinkers, people. That's right. The end where the dog leaves, he makes the dog cower, and then he's talking about the wanderer and his shadow, and the ghost that flew overhead and said it's time, it's high time. That ending. Let me read it again. I'm gonna read it out loud. Let me see here. What am I to think of it? Said Zarathustra. Am I then a ghost? But it will have been my shadow. Surely you have heard something of the wanderer and his shadow. This, however, is certain. I must keep it under stricter control, otherwise it will ruin my reputation. And once again, Zarathustra shook his head and wondered, what am I to think of it? He said again. Why then did the phantom cry, it is time, it is high time? For what then is it high time? That there is a little note, a footnote, that's number 20. So that's next to Wanderer and his shadow. So let me go ahead and find that and try and see if that's going to help here. Oh. The Wanderer and His Shadow is the title of one of Nietzsche's books, the third part of Human All Too Human. And it is another section. I know he has a section in here, I think in book 4, that talks about the shadow, about this negative entity that follows him around and tries to bring him down. But yeah, I don't know. If you go ahead and go off on this section if you can, because I really don't know.
Okay, well, I'll just start off with, let's have a look here. So, yeah, I'll finish off with the point on the fire dog. So, he went into so he had the big bark. The dogs had the big bark. Zarathustra laid the smackdown of truth, which is like, if a dog gets bit by a bigger dog when he was barking loud, and then he whimpers,
Yeah.
And then he crawls back. So, I mean, that's just another thing. I think that should be just a quote on our channel at this point, that people love comfortable lives but despise uncomfortable truths. So...
yeah, throw that up there, bro. We'll make a banner.
Yeah, and then, what's it called? So, yeah, he's going to this island, right? There's a volcano. It's a symbol of the gateway to hell, because humans can't enter it because of the lava.
Unless you're hemi-synced.
Yeah, and then, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, Zarathustra goes on the island, and he has the encounter with the fire dogs, which are, symbolic of, coming out of, I don't know, maybe they're, some lost souls trying to enter hell or something that he has to face, or whatever. And then he's telling the sailors of the story, right? And no one's listening. They want to tell him of... Even though the sailors were originally worried that Zarathustra might be dead, or that the devil had carried him off into hell, I guess he's returning, right? And then telling them of the story, no one's listening. Their own desire to tell them of their story was superseding his, perhaps. So then he's asking himself why he's asking himself why they're not listening to him. So he's asking if he's a ghost. So perhaps he thought maybe he died on the island, or something may have happened.
Oh, holy shit.
No one's listening to him. But it will have been my shadow. So I guess to further have an analysis of that section, we have to read The Wanderer and His Shadow, because he's referring to that. So we'll kind of skip over that. break this down. I must be kept under stricter control. So,
I must keep it under stricter control, otherwise it will ruin my reputation.
so I don't understand why Zarathustra would worry about his reputation, but so yeah, perhaps Zarathustra is. It's a hard one, huh? Will ruin my reputation.
Yeah.
I won't trick his head and wonder why am I because it's kind of incoherent in a sense. You know, it is. We don't know what the high time is. Neither does
Well,
Zarathustra.
wait a minute. We do know what the high time is.
Okay.
The high time he talks about the great noontide, in which the sun will be at the peak and it's brightest in the sky, and that's in reference to the Ubermensch. That is in
Nice.
reference to the coming of, like, how the day reaches its peak, man will reach, that point, and he's saying it's coming. So that's what I think he's saying. I'm trying to remember. Do you remember? It's later in the book, but he does have a section. It has a section. Oh, here. Oh, wow. I just literally just flipped to it. It is in book. Okay, I don't know what book it is, but it's on page 283, and the section is called "The Shadow." And in this section, if I remember correctly, he is on his way back to his cave where his eagle and the serpent and the animals are in nature, and he meets a lot of people: the voluntary beggar, the shadow, the priest, and the ugliest man. He meets all these people. He meets the shadow, and they're all like archetypes of, like, people gone wrong or people gone down bad paths, and then he talks to them and then invites them to dinner in the cave. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Vague?
Okay, I've actually, I think I may have the answer.
Hey.
So if you go to 283, the beginning of the shadow, there's a section here. Truly, it is becoming too much for me. These mountains are swarming. My kingdom is no longer of this world. I need new mountains. So perhaps his disciples are no longer willing to learn what Zarathustra has to teach them. He's become a ghost, perhaps, or they've fallen back on their old ways, or something along that nature, where they're not willing to listen, or Zarathustra is actually a ghost. But he's referring to the wonder in the shadow because his kingdoms have grown small and he needs new mountains. So maybe he needs new disciples for him to instill his teachings and converse with them and learn more about himself, or something along those lines. Because it's like if you find someone to a mentor to teach you, and then you have so many questions for that mentor to teach you about that certain subject, whichever it may be. But the day that you stop asking questions is the day that it's time for you to move on, even if it's a good relationship, for your benefit and the mentor, because you no longer have that teaching connection,
Yeah.
Because if you were really inspired and hungry to learn that knowledge, and then you stopped asking the question, you need new mountains, you need a new place to go to retain that hunger and learn more, because you're stagnating.
Yes. Yeah. And
So
stagnating also, that's literally the end of the other section, the shadow. By losing your goal, you have lost your way too.
yeah, so his disciples have lost a goal, so he's become a ghost to them, and now he needs to find new disciples or people who will overcome themselves.
Okay. Yeah. I can see that. Okay. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense, because the time is coming and he's trying to understand.
and
and because that's what he wants.
and
And if
that
these people, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and then we have the next section, which is the prophet. So, I mean, you can kind of look at that as he's going to be going somewhere else to do his teachings,
Oh,
because
100%.
the original thing we saw of him is he ran into the town with like his lantern and screamed, "God is dead." So,
What a crazy guy.
yeah.
We can't listen to him. He sounds crazy. Who would take advice from this crazy fucking guy?
Yeah, so I think that's pretty much good for the section, and then let's wrap it up with some things that we've been doing that have been helping with our mood, improving our mind, so that we can also enhance our, that Greek connection of mind and body always getting better.
Do you want to start?
No, you stop.
Okay. So, I know how this sounds. This sounds a little kind of. I know how it's going to sound, but I have to say it anyways. There are. I think if we as people, everybody on Earth, if we all focused a little bit on what it means to be human and like what does it mean to be healthy, a lot of our problems go away. A simple analogy, and this is an analogy that mechanics use, is KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Are you getting good quality sleep? Are you drinking enough water every day? Are you eating things that are good for you? Are you and the best one, are you breathing correctly? And exercise, sorry. There's probably a few more that I'm missing, but essentially what I'm getting at is the more I look into myself and question to make sure that I have the fundamental basis, the foundation of my life, to make sure that I have all that shit in order, things have gotten way better for me. It's pretty plain and simple. This isn't something I feel like you should have to say, oh, it doesn't work for everybody, because motherfuckers, if you learn how to breathe, things get better. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess, I think everyone during COVID had to kind of face themselves in a sense, and which is pretty much the big idea from Thus Spoke Zarathustra is overcoming the self. And I think that's scary for a lot of people, people who surround themselves with a lot of people or distractions or whatever it may be. So you're not thinking. And so I think a lot of people have found ways to kind of help, but I think a lot of others are probably still stuck in that kind of dark space. But things that I've been doing or trying to incorporate into my life is Wim Hof breathing, which I love. I think it's so important. The main benefit is you're going to really oxygenate your blood. And we're so distracted with daily life, we don't pay attention to like such simple things we can do, like 10 minutes of Wim Hof breathing, which can have a huge effect on your mood, enhances your breath. And it's like, I can compare it to drinking like a large glass of water in the morning. Is you're kind of getting it out of the way. You've just been asleep for however long, and you're getting that hydration, which I do every morning. 32 ounces when I wake up with a hydrogen tablet, salt to replace lost minerals, and then baking soda for enhancing like my athletic performance. And there's numerous other benefits, but like that made me feel so much better, just getting a ton of water in the morning. And that's why I would compare Wim Hof to. It's the same thing. You've been asleep, your breath has been disrupted, and just over oxygenating your blood is gonna make everything feel much better. And not only that is his amazing ability. He got injected with cholera, I think, or something, and was able to get rid of it with his breathing method in less than 10 minutes.
It was AIDS, actually.
Let's see. And then one thing I'm excited, I just learned about how meditation, there was a study done on a group of people from all ages, and within 20 days they, from just focusing on their breath and relaxing in, out, and turning off their brain for a second from overthinking and basically making things up in your mind that once brought out to light are not as big a deal as one may think. And just that peace they got for 20 minutes vastly improved their mood. They had found that spark they had, that reason for why they enjoyed their work or whatever it may be. And I think it's really important, and it's amazing the access to literature and things of that nature that can really improve your overall well-being while not costing anything. You know, it's like there's so many things that you can buy that people are like, oh, feel better. Just as simple as drinking good amounts of water in the morning, Wim Hof, some meditation, eating foods that are real. You know, you can't look at a pink chewy square like a Starburst and that's real food, you know. And the nature has given us everything we need to have good health, and I think it's important to find those things and find what works for you.
That's right, everybody. Listen, if you guys want personal life coaching, we charge $500 every minute. Very worth very worth it. We'll talk to you all about Carl Jung and psychology and philosophy, all you want.
Yeah, if you want to get turned up, really get injected with some Ubermensch, we got you. You want to get injected with 3 cc's of Ubermensch?
I have too much to give, my friend. my friend, my buona. But yeah, I feel like that was a very solid conclusion towards this podcast, in a kind of a lighthearted ending for small changes. I mean, listen, people, you don't have to do much. Drinking water it doesn't cost any money. Doing breathing for all it takes. Listen, I'm going to plug another podcast that I really love, is the Andrew Huberman podcast. I just listened to one the other day, and it was the improvements of overall quality of life in terms of energy, happiness from doing meditation, like, I don't know, 10 minutes, like 3 times a week, whatever it was so drastic that it was absurd. And he didn't specify, because he said that there is no one meditation that's going to be perfect for everybody, but there are a lot of different types of meditations to do and try. And yeah, 10 minutes, people. That's it. Get your let's get happy, people.
Let's get fired up, dude. I'm ready to take over Russia in the winter right now.
With no fucking clothes on. Ooh, 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 ooh.
Fire breathing.
Fire breathing. 11th form. Oh my god. Fucking rest in peace, Rengoku, dude.
Yeah,
fuck.
Yeah, deep Wim Hof breathe. Fire form.
Oh, that's sad. I just remembered he died. That sucks.
Okay.
All right, people.
Okay, everyone.
I was going off on fucking Demon Slayer.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. This has been another episode of the Dense Thinkers podcast. Thank you.
Cue outro.
Yeah, you need to start doing our outro song on the guitar, huh?
That's not a bad idea, actually.